Hello everyone and welcome to Total Quilter Monthly for November 2019. My name is Mark Garretts and I'm a National Floriani educator. This month we're going to be going over the big update we got in October 2019 and all of the really cool things that it brings to Total Quilter and my decorative quilter. So as far as the actual updates to Total Quilter go, there were just a few. We got improved zoom tool operation, we got a new measurements box with live update, we can edit text directly with a right click, and probably one of the coolest things is that you no longer have to do something special when you want to import or export artwork or different file formats. Now everything opens and saves with the File Open and Save command. But the big news is that it's now integrated into the FTCU and new Fusion platforms. And we're going to be talking about that a lot. But first, let's go over the changes to Total Quilter. So let's get into some of the enhancements that are in Total Quilter and my decorative quilter. So first up is the way the zoom tool works. And this is the zoom tool over here, the magnifying glass. And when you select it, your cursor becomes a little magnifying glass. And in the past, when you click this, the screen would zoom, but it always would zoom around the center of the screen. And then we'd have to pan around using the arrow keys, the sliders on the side here to get where we wanted to actually zoom to. We could click and drag a box around what we wanted to zoom to, and that'll zoom right to it and magnify it as much as it can. But if you just want to use the regular zoom tool, now if you click on something, it will zoom to that part of it. So for example, if I click on the Q here in Quilter, it'll zoom so we get right to there. And similarly, if I zoom over here on the R, it'll zoom into that spot. So it makes a zoom that's responsive to where we put the magnifying glass. And that's a pretty cool tool, and you'll wonder why it never worked that way in the first place and how you lived without it once you start getting used to the way that works. And still, by the way, my favorite shortcut is double-clicking the magnifying glass gets everything back in the center for us. Now, one of the other things that we've added to Total Quilter is this new small measurement or dimensions box. And this pops up in a variety of different ways. So for example, if I want to create a run stitch, so let me come up here to, let's use a rectangle. So if I come up here to my rectangle tool and I click and draw a rectangle, you'll see that as I move the cursor down in the left, or excuse me, the right corner, oh, and it went away, let me move again, you will see a little pop-up that shows you the current size that you're at in both millimeters and inches. And as you move, it continually live updates so you can see the size that you're making it. And of course, when you let off, that box goes away. It also works on objects. So if I select this text object here and I come over here to the left and I proportionally resize it by putting my cursor on the handle on the corner and I click and drag, you'll see that as the text resizes, I get my size along with it in the box. And that box is going to show up basically right wherever you've got your cursor pointing. So that's where to look for it. So that is the new resize box and dimensions box, and it's a pretty handy little tool. And the last thing that we've really added to this, that's kind of a feature that you're going to use when you're in the software, is the ability to edit text when you simply right click on it, and as opposed to having to do it the old way. Now the old way was you had to click it and then you could do some simple editing of the text here in what I will call normal select mode. But if you wanted to get in and adjust the character spacing and do a lot of the other fancy things that you could with the text controls, you would have to come up here to your text tool, click it, and then it would turn it into text mode. And then you've got your little positioning icons and movement icons and all the enhanced controls around the side, envelope controls, etc. And now if I go back to regular select mode, so I don't have those, instead of having to come up and find the text tool and select that and then go into that mode, I can now simply right click on the text and there's a new menu item called Edit Text, and I can click that, and it comes up and lets me edit the text directly. There's also a shortcut key for that. If you did notice it, I'll show it to you again. Let me go back to regular select mode. If I right click on it, you see here Edit Text has a T, capital T by it. So if I just have the text selected and I go to my keyboard and I type a capital T, I get directly into that mode. Hold on one second, let me do it again. There. A regular T gets me into that mode. I typed a capital T and that's what it looked like, but it's actually a lowercase t. So that's how you get there. And those are the big enhancements that we put into this build of Total Quilter, or my decorative quilter, just using it as the standalone program that you've come to know and love. But the really big enhancement to Total Quilter is the fact that this latest build lets it work in the new FTCU/Fusion platform that we've also released for both FTCU and a brand new program called Fusion. And I'm going to open up Total Control and show you how that works. So I already have it open, so I'm just going to click down here and go to it. And here's the big deal for Total Quilter users. If you already own Total Control, and I'm willing to bet that 99% of you already own Total Control, there are lots of things that you could do in Total Control that you could never do in Total Quilter or my decorative quilter. And there's really, really a long list, and we're going to go over some of them. But now, if you look, you will see here in Total Control, and you can see right here I'm in Total Control. I also now have my decorative quilter and Total Quilter icons. So they are all here for me to use just like I was in Total Quilter. So in fact, there's no reason to ever open Total Quilter again unless you just know you want to do something with the Total Quilter controls and you don't want the full suite of Total controls added into it. Then you can still, on your desktop, click your Total Quilter icon and open that just like I did, and you won't have any of the rest of these tools. But I think the new way of working, and the way you're going to love working, is in the new platform that fuses everything together. And by everything, I mean that you get not only Total Control, but you can also have my decorative quilter, and the new Lettering Master and Sketch-A-Stitch programs will also be integrated into Total Control, and you'll be able to access everything from one interface. And that makes it really, really nice because it gives the Total Quilter user a lot of tools that you had to switch programs to get to use. So you'd have to save something in my decorative quilter and then bring it into Total Control and mess with it in Total Control, and then maybe go back to Total Quilter to do some other things. You don't have to do that anymore. Now it's all integrated. And I keep mentioning this Fusion program, so let me just try to unconfuse you here for a second, because Fusion is a new program from Floriani, but you can think of it as a lighter version or an entry-level version of Total Control. So it doesn't add anything new really, it just is a Total Control with some of the controls missing. So it's kind of like a lightweight version of Total Control, and it's designed to get people started into the platform. If you already own Total Control though, you don't need to go out and buy Fusion, you already have it because it's literally part of Total Control, and this new Fusion interface where everything is fused together is all part of the package. So if you're new to Total Control and you don't have it, then you have the option of buying Fusion and getting some of the Total Control features and my decorative quilter or Total Quilter merged into it like you see here. Or if you already have Total Control, then when you start it up, it's automatically going to have all of your my decorative quilter or Total Quilter icons and functions available. So let's go over some of the things that are enhancements that are going to improve your workflow and give you a lot more options for creating your quilt projects in the new platform. So with FTCU and Total Quilter together, you have a full set of digitizing controls. So in Total Quilter, all you had for digitizing was basically a run stitch. You could also create some appliques and things by drawing some artwork, and you had some full artwork creation tools, but the ability to turn them into various types of stitches was really limited. So let me go back to Total Quilter here so we can see. So in Total Quilter, I have a line input tool so I could draw artwork, and the only real direct stitch creation tool was a run stitch. I could draw shapes, and I could use built-in shapes, and I can convert them down here with the conversion icon. So I can convert a shape to a run, I could convert it to a run motif, a steel stitch, or a steel run fancy stitch, or I could do an applique, or I could go back to artwork. I could also do these types of quilting type fills, a texture fill, auto stippling, advanced stippling, echo quilting, contour quilting, and shape echo. So those are the things that I could do in Total Quilter. If I wanted to create a standard fill, or any of the fancy fills or wave fills or anything like that that are available in Total Control, I couldn't do it. So let me go back to Total Control, and now you see you have all these icons available for you down here to convert to, and up here you have a full set of digitizing controls. So you can now put in manual stitches, run stitches you could have done, but now you can put in a satin stitch, a classic satin stitch, a steel stitch directly, complex fill, and you can create an applique directly without having to convert to it. So those full set of digitizing tools are now added in so you can access them directly. The other thing that's really cool is if I create an object, so let me just create an object here. I'll again use the rectangle, and I'll create a rectangle, and if I select it in FTCU, you see I've got some extra things outside my selection box. I've got these shortcuts that let me go to various tools. So for example, I've got the dimensions here I can see. I've got a zoom to fit. I can delete it. I can move it around. I can, or this is actually for nudging. I can close the shape. I can lock it. I can go directly into shape editing mode right from here by clicking this icon. And this is a right click for those of you with pens that don't have an easy right click button. And this is a duplicate button that makes a quick copy of the object. So all of those extra little things around the outside, I've gotten real used to using them in FTCU, and now I have them available with all my quilt projects as well when I use it inside the FTCU platform. So that's kind of cool. I really like that. Also, you've got more fonts and more font capability. So in Total Quilter, you had about 50 built-in fonts. I'm going to actually delete this. I'm going to show you how this little shortcut works. I just click that and delete it. In Total Quilter, you had about 50 total fonts. Here now in FTCU, I've got the full suite of fonts available. So if I just click here and put in a font, it's going to always put in my text. So that part works the same. But now, instead of just having 50 fonts, I have the full suite of 170 some fonts available. So that's really nice. Also, I've got the font play feature, which you probably know about. If you don't, that lets you preview whatever text you want or standard text in any of the fonts, so you can really quickly see a preview of what that text is going to look like. So this is a feature that I use all the time in Total Control, and now I have it available when I want to do something in quilting. So that's very nice. And I also have a lot more font options. I had a few font options in Total Quilter where I could put text on a circle and a few other things, but now I've got the ability, oh, wrong icon, I don't want font play again. Now if I go back to text, I've got a whole bunch more things. So I've got my regular text and text on a circle, but I've got vertical text, text on a path. I've now got monogramming things available to me. Importing the text directly as true type. This is great for making applique letters and things. And if you have it, you can create a new font with either the font creation tool that's built into Total Control, but if you have Lettering Master, you can create a font with a lot more capability. And this also gives you the ability to use a stitch file font and make it a keyboard font. Now, what do I mean by that? So out there in the world, there's a whole bunch of people selling fonts, and they are really just collections of stitch files, each file with a letter. And you had to put them in one at a time and move them around and create your text that way. FTCU gives you the ability to do a font mapping where you can map those to keystrokes and just type them in, so you never have to do the drag and drop of all the letters in again. And Lettering Master takes that to the next level, giving you a lot more control and giving you the ability to more creatively create fonts from scratch. So if you have Lettering Master, which is a separate program, that also shows up here in your font controls. So those are the basic font additions to FTCU. So you've got font play, I showed you. One of the other things that got added into FTCU that we didn't get in Total Quilter was some advanced some advanced stippling features. So to show you that, let me do an auto stipple. So let me get rid of this and see how convenient that is. And I am going to put in a rectangle. So we'll just put in a little rectangle here. And we will come down and we will auto stipple that. So let me select it, and I'll come down here to my stippling, which is right here. And we'll go ahead and put that in. And now I've got, when I right click on it, I've got so let me just create a rectangle. I'll just do a little rectangle here, and we'll come down here. Let me select it, and we'll come down to our auto stippling here, and I'm going to put an auto stipple in there. And now over here in my properties box, I have some extra controls I didn't have before. So here's density, stitch length, random factor, which I didn't have before. So this random factor here gives me the ability to adjust how random this is. So right now it's at 70. It's pretty random. We could make it even more random by making this number bigger. So let's try a 90 and see what happens. I don't know how much different it will look, but let's just give it a try. And yeah, it looks a lot more random now. I'm not sure I like that, but let's give it a much lower factor. So let's give it, say, a 30 and click apply. And now the stippling is going to be a lot less random. It's going to look a lot more ordered. So it looks more like puzzle pieces rather than the real random wandering like it has. But you can adjust this number any way you like. And that was a feature that went into FTCU in the last update. We didn't get it in Total Quilter, but now we have it if you also have it, obviously, in FTCU. And you don't have to switch between programs to get it. So one of the other things that we've added, or that you get when you use Total Quilter, is hoop splitting. So you have this split wizard here. This lets you split a design across multiple hoopings if you want to. So that's a pretty useful function if you want to go make a bigger design, a bigger quilt block than will fit in your hoop. If you want to make it bigger than will go in the hoop, you can use the auto split tool to do that. One of the other things that you get when you merge these two programs together is that Total Quilter was one of the only programs that had the ability to read and write the long arm quilting formats. Now in Total Quilter, those formats are added in if you own Total Quilter. So if you want to create something for a long arm in FTCU without using any of the Total Quilter functions, you don't have to bring that into Total Quilter to save it in a long arm format. Now, of course, you can do it all together. One of the other really cool things is, of course, this huge suite we have of conversions. So you can do a lot more conversions with things than you could before. Mesh fills, you've got the various texture and advanced stippling like you had before. You've got your cross stitch tools. You have wave fills, gradient fills, color blends, motif fills, all different kinds of fills and one clicks that we never had before in Total Quilter. So now you just have a ton more options for creating things when you combine these two in the Fusion platform. One of the other things that's really nice is that if you wanted to correct something, like you wanted to move some of these stippling stitches around, you would have to have saved it as a stitch file and then opened it back up with convert to outlines open, and then that would convert those stitches into outlines so you could modify the outlines in here. Now, right now, if we go and we look at the outline of this, we will see that all we have is a rectangle because this fill is a high-level function. We can't get in here and actually move these angles around. And I had a section in one of my previous Total Quilter videos on how to get around that, but it required you saving this as a stitch file and then opening it back up in Total Quilter with the convert to outlines open option open, and it would convert these into outlines so you could do them. Now we can do it all in this new platform because we have a bunch of extra tools. So I'm going to show you how that works. I'm going to go back to regular select mode. So if I right click on this, I can tell it right here to make this into stitches. Okay, now it no longer has that outline. If I click on this, I can't edit it because it's stitches. And I don't have any outline available to do on stitches. You can see that that shape tool here is grayed out. But one of the things that's cool about FTCU that's not in Total Quilter is I can right click on it and I can convert this back to outlines. Now because this is stitches, if I convert it to outlines, it's going to trace the path of the stitches. So now if I select it and I select my shape tool, I actually have all those shapes. And you can see, oh my God, it's a mess. But let me zoom into a little part of it here, and you can see that I can actually come in here now, and I can modify these curves of the stippling design exactly the way I want it by using my shape tools and other tools. And I could never do that before in Total Quilter without having to do a bunch of save steps like I just talked about. So I'm going to zoom back out and let me actually convert this back to stitches. Let me just undo this because it's just really not fun to look at. All right, so that's a really cool thing that you can do, and it's taking advantage of that right click of convert to stitches and a right click of convert back to outlines, and that gives us the true stitch path here that we can come in and then modify, which without doing that you really can't do. One of the other things you may have noticed is this new little toolbar here that shows up. This is called the dynamic toolbar, and it's new. Some people have a little hard time getting used to the fact that it's there, but trust me, once you get used to it being there, it's a really, really cool thing because it lets you get to the most often used tools without having to hunt all around. And now that everything's together, boy, there's a lot more icons than there used to be. But the most common icons you might use in this mode are right here. If I select this, watch what happens. You'll see that that box changes. So it gives me icons and tools that I might want to use with this stitch object here now instead of a high-level object. So this is a dynamic toolbar. It's really cool, and it changes again based on what you have selected, giving you the most common used tools for the selection that you have. One of the other things you may have noticed over here in our properties is that we have some enhancements to the way these look. So let me convert this back into outlines again. And now if I click on it, we see we've got more stuff we can do over here. So this is our run type. This is our run extra tab. And this is our commands tab. This is our transform tab. But you'll notice that there are no longer text here. It's now icons. And the reason we did this is because it makes it easier to fit all of the command tabs, all the tabs you want to go to, on one screen here, so you didn't have to scroll. There's still a lot of controls, so sometimes you still need to scroll even with the icons. If you forget what an icon is, you can hover over it and you can see it come up like that with a little pop-up. Now the other thing that you can do is you can make this go back to the old way by going to your properties, and you can go to the environment, and I think that's where it is. Nope, let's go to view. Yeah, it's got to be in view. Yeah, it's right here. It's use icons on property tab. So if I uncheck that and click OK, you'll see that these go back to the old way of having the text there. But I'll go back to the proper way, or the current new default way, I should say, which is using those icons, and turn that on. You also now have the ability to change the way it looks. Now, I've been a long time user of FTCU, so I'm used to this silver look, but you can, with the properties box and the view, change the theme color now. So we've given you the default silver. You can go to aqua, and we'll see what that looks like. So that gives you that color. It's showing up as purple right now on my screen. I don't know what it's going to look like on yours, but it's purple on mine. And I'm going to guess that it's not showing aqua because of some interaction with my recording software. But let's see what one of the other themes looks like. Let's go to Luna Blue, and let's see if that comes out as a blue. Oh, that's a little bit better blue. Okay. And let's look at the last one, which was that Obsidian Black. And black look is now becoming really popular in a lot of applications and phones and things. So if you want to do that look, you can. So you can have that kind of dark look. And I'm going to go back to the default, again, because I'm old school and that's the way I like it. So I'm going to go back to silver. So that is something that you can now play with in the new platform. So let me click OK again. So I'm almost to the end of what you can do, but as you can tell with the last thing I did here, you don't have to switch back and forth between programs to get the text or the new effects, or to do special effects. One of the things that we added into all of these was that we got rid of file import. So even in FTCU, there's no more file import export. There's still import TrueType artwork, but there's no import a vector file or save a vector file. They now all open and close. And one of the things that was always a little bit annoying was that if you had both FTCU and you had Total Quilter, and you double clicked on, say, a WAF file, you had to set your default up to either open in Total Quilter or open up in FTCU. And maybe if you also had, I don't know, Craft and Cut and a few of our other programs, maybe open in one of those. Now, whatever you do, you can set it to open up in FTCU, And if you're working on a quilt block, you'll have all your quilting controls available when it opens in FTCU, so you never have to worry about that it's going to open in the wrong program. So that's kind of cool. And like I mentioned earlier, if you also own Lettering Master and Sketch-A-Stitch, those will also open up in the new platform along with uh, your quilt blocks. So you can have all your quilting controls and have both all the FTCU controls, the Lettering Master controls, and the sketching controls all available to you in one platform. And I call it the Fusion platform, but Fusion as a standalone program, remember, is different, and it is like a light version of Total Control. So there are a ton more things that are in Total Control that I didn't have a chance to cover because of time. So if you have Total Control, you probably already know about them. If you don't have Total Control, see your local dealer about getting a copy, or you can get the new Fusion program, which is a good way to get started with the Total Control world, and still adds a lot of features and functions to Total Quilter. And again, it'll all run in that Fusion platform. And I want to thank everybody for watching and invite you to come back next month for the next edition of Total Quilter Monthly.